can never remember who's on this committee.
In any case,
All right, Mr. Sands, I see that we are broadcasting.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. The first order of business is to review the committee meeting minutes of September 14th, which I believe everybody got a copy of. Do we have any comments or corrections to those minutes?
Move to accept.
Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to accept.
I'm sorry, can you, when you're going to make a motion,
Yeah,
can you
sorry.
say your name,
Oh,
please?
sorry,
So that,
John Bellaventuro.
Thank you.
Move to accept.
Sorry.
Can I have a second?
Second.
And I see a second from Dr. Hirsch. I'll try to call
Okay.
him.
All in favor?
Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay. Amy, you're the reviewer of the month. Why don't you walk us through the numbers?
Okay. So I met with Linda last week in person, which was nice. The expenditures for the month of September were $4,846,376.44. This is 21.15% of the budget. Last year we were 21.27. We did have some revenue for the month, about $2,800, which was $908 from Medicaid reimbursements and $1,900-ish from pre-K tuition. And then just going through the list, the salary line is similar to last year. Certified central office salaries are a bit less because we had some overlap last year of Anne and Aneen's time for assistant superintendents, and I'm guessing we'll have that in the future as Rick and Julia have overlapped until I think this month.
Yes, that'll this month.
Employee benefits are higher, and this is due to our unemployment compensation because of the number of claims. And Linda, you can correct me if I explain this wrong, but much of unemployment for other places is paid in advance, but we pay ours as each claim. Am I saying that right?
Other places are rate-based, so they pay a rate based on their experience, and we don't pay on a rate, we pay actual claims.
All right, thanks. And, you know, I think it's probably fairly obvious, but we have substitutes, coaches, also some that turn out to be ineligible, but we get tagged when people are even laid off from other places. And maybe Linda, you can explain the Department of Labor. I have a note about there's some kind of refund, but.
Yeah, so any of the claims that we pay, we get back 50% of it, but we get the credit the following month. So we have to pay the bill in full for anybody that we think is a valid claim, and then we get 50% of it back the following month. So it shows up as a credit next month.
Purchase services is lower, tuition is lower, but we kind of know how that goes. Supplies and material is a bit lower. Capital is a bit lower. Transportation is lower. The COVID line is got additional positions for subs. The bus monitors will be reflected when we get billed by transportation. I did learn, which I didn't know before, the bus monitors are hired by specialty, so we won't have to be concerned about benefits or unemployment, correct, for them?
Correct. That's correct.
And we did get some grant money. The abbreviation is ESSER. I forget what it stands for about 117,000. And then there's another grant, the COVID relief fund, that's pending, hopefully, for more.
Right, the application has been submitted, but we haven't gotten the final approval yet. And that's over $400,000.
And Linda,
Right.
that's the one that was submitted by the town jointly with ours.
No, that's
No,
the
that's
FEMA
different.
reimbursement.
Okay,
So anything that's not covered by the ESSER grant or the CRF grant, we can apply for FEMA reimbursement for some things.
Right.
And we get 75% of the cost of those items back from FEMA.
Right.
We've submitted one claim to FEMA. We have not received anything yet.
When was that?
The
There's a lot.
town's submitting it quarterly, so they had submitted it August or September for expenses through June.
We're tracking any expenses this year that might be qualifying, and again, we'll be always back for a quarter. But Linda does work closely with the town on that one.
All right, so the total warrant for the month was just a little over $2 million. Linda and I looked through the warrant. And anyone that has questions, feel free to ask. I didn't find anything that was particularly that stuck out to me. I'm flipping through my pages. So anyone who has questions, feel free.
Does anybody have any questions on the financials or the warrants?
I have a question, Mr. Sands. I'm sorry, I was printed out poorly, so I'm going to not be very helpful with page numbers, but it's an Amazon.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear who's talking.
Sorry, it's Katie Balastraci.
Okay.
I had a question for, it's Amazon purchases. I just want a clarification. Webcams, but it says lease. Are those we're paying for, but we expect to be part of the technology lease? Am I understanding that correctly? Or what is the lease part there?
Yes, that's items that were going through the technology lease.
Right.
If they're the webcams and they're COVID related, they may end up going through COVID for some of the technology things that we can be reimbursed for.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. It's a small expense, but it's a weird place.
We're
to
not
have
leasing,
lease,
we're
right?
not leasing the cameras.
We're not
From
leasing the
Amazon.
cameras.
We're using
Right,
those
right. No, I
funds
didn't
for it.
think so.
Yep.
Thank
I had a couple of questions. Goldman, Gruder and Woods LLC, CM tuition settlements comes to $69,000. What can we get a little background on that? That's a lot of money.
It's a special education settlement, and part of the settlement stated that the payment needed to go through the attorney, not directly to the parents or to the school. So that was a special ed settlement.
Negotiated between attorneys.
Yes,
Ted, if I can add, that's the financial is put in trust to the attorney for the family.
Thank
I
you.
see. Okay. I'm looking at the Connecticut water bill. Boy, we sure made them rich this month. How in the world could we have $15,000 at Adams?
the irrigation system at Adams. And
Yeah,
it's
but we
not
have an
just-
irrigation system at Cox and we have an irrigation system at Leak. It doesn't come to $15,000.
The Cox one,
Cliff, I don't know if you want to comment on this or if we can just get back to you.
I believe the system at Adams is larger. This is the first year that it's been actually online, Ted. So we don't really know the full capacity, but they did do that entire field behind Adams. And it was an extremely dry summer, as most people know. So I'd have to go back and compare what Cox was running at, but it is a large amount of heads that are back there.
So Cliff, maybe if you could try to get some information on usage for one of the other fields that we're more familiar with in this new space, we could get an idea of the scale of the new system compared to the others. The numbers might make more sense for everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. We can try to come back to that at your next meeting, Mr. Sam.
Okay, that'd be great. Under Meehan Farah, $27,000 for Adams ceiling. What is this?
And say that again. That was to whom?
It's listed as Megan Ferrara. We're looking at
No,
18800.
it's sorry. I think you're off.
Millennium Builders.
Millennium Builders.
Millennium Builders, thank you.
Yep. So that was for the new ceiling and lighting system on the second floor at Adams. So we tore out the entire grid, tore out all the lights, replaced all the lights, the ceiling grid and the ceiling tiles. Made a incredible difference in the appearance on that second floor. We tried to do one level. We did the first floor last year. We did the second floor this year. We'll do the third floor next year, but it makes an incredible difference, brightens it up, really makes it much more attractive up there.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the warrants or the financials for the month? Hearing none, I think we can proceed. Okay, let's go to the budget timeline if we could. I had a question. On October 28th, we're supposed to have a workshop for public input. Those are always fun. But I remember that we have those for 2 nights. We're showing this as only being for 1 night.
So, Mr. Sands, usually in October, we host one evening, and that is for the town to come to us with anything that they'd like to see in the budget. We will host 2 evenings in February, and that is after the board has drafted your budget, and the community has 2 nights to respond on what makes it into your budget.
I see. Okay.
And Mr. Sands, if I may, we will likely host that evening in a way similar to the way we hosted the public hearing around the mascot back in June. And so we will be inviting larger numbers of folks into the Zoom meeting and inviting participants to comment rather than sort of auditing this meeting as they are on YouTube this evening.
Yeah. Oh, no, I completely agree. We're trying to elicit input from the parents and the taxpayers. So, I mean, the more we can get them to participate, the better. Yeah, no, I understand. Very good. Any other comments on the timeline? All right. Let's look at the food service report, which we actually have.
Yes, so you did receive the end of the year for June, and you have September's, which, oh, sorry.
No.
Junior copy? I got it. Thank you. So for September, it does show a loss of $98,906.57. So this is not the best news. We did start off very slow, especially given everything in the situation. We are making improvements. We introduced hot food on October 1st, and we've seen a small increase in meals. So as everybody knows, we do offer free breakfast and free lunch to any children under 18. That was going until the end of December or that the program ran out of funding. But the USDA did just receive all of the money to extend the program for the entire country until the end of the school year. We're just waiting for the state of Connecticut to adopt into that program and then extend that waiver to all of us in the state of Connecticut. So right now, we're just reviewing the program and seeing what we can do to help in any way, boost meal counts and reduce costs.
We'll be meeting internally to look at food services. We don't view these numbers as sustainable. We cannot sustain $100,000 loss every month moving forward. Now, September is often the weakest month,
Yeah,
but this year is unusual in that we don't have the regular vehicles for increasing student participation that we have had in past years. So we recognize the significance of this loss. We'll be meeting internally. Hopefully at your next meeting, we'll have some we'll have some information for you about how we're working to rectify this sort of loss.
there is a good amount of beginning of the year costs that we always get in this, why we make September almost always negative. So they vary anywhere from 20 to 30,000 right off the bat. Is just our annual software, our uniforms, things that we pay in the beginning of the year every year. Last year, if you did happen to have them, we were negative as well last year, but we did make a purchase of new equipment for the high school and Adams. So that was a big chunk of why we were negative last year at 87,000. So it is high, but we were overcoming that last year every month going forward.
And
Well, but I mean, let me ask a question here. I mean,
Sure.
the federal reimbursement at $16,000 kind of pales when you look at expenditures of 120. I
Yeah.
mean, if the feds really want us to do all this stuff they're talking about, don't we need to get more money out of them?
So the federal reimbursement is set. So we were averaging, like in the beginning of September on the 10th, 11th, and 14th, we were doing anywhere from 11 to 15 breakfasts and 190 to 210 lunches district-wide. And we usually do about 1,100, anywhere in the beginning of the year from 900 to 1,100 a day district-wide. Our participation was so low in the beginning, and it's because of everyone's uncertainty, especially with returning to school. When we looked in the past few days in October, we're up over 135 breakfasts to 563 lunches. So we're definitely making progress in the correct direction. It's just not at a speed that works the best for us or as fast. I do have weekly calls. We're not the only district that is suffering from low participation. We just had a combo call with CASBO of what to do for food service accounts. So it is something that we're addressing and figuring out any other solutions for us and any other districts around us in the state.
Eric, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
you said in the beginning, 11 to 15 breakfasts.
A day.
district-wide,
Yeah,
And what was the lunches?
they were 190 to 210.
And then, of course, to state the obvious, we have half the kids in the building on
Yes.
any given day and no one in the building on Wednesday.
That is true. So we do offer, we have in-class delivery of meals. We have daily pickup for any distance
Oh,
learners.
great.
We have that every day. And we also deliver breakfast and lunch kits to the GCC all-day programs.
Okay.
So those are those counts with 3 methods of delivery:
Okay.
in-class, pickup, and delivered to the sites. And we're still just about 500 a day right now.
So not surprising, but as you said,
Yeah.
not sustainable.
Right.
No.
at this rate.
Exactly. And with students K through 8 eating in their classrooms and with the uncertainty of the pandemic just writ large, we've got more families who are sending in brown
Right.
bags and not
Right.
taking advantage. And if we have low usage, we're going to have low reimbursement. And
Right.
so, again, we need to really take a look. In normal years, Erica would be talking about ways that we intend to increase participation with exciting menu changes and food options and a la carte and salad bars and smoothies. None of those are an option this year. And so while we do not usually go in this direction, we do need to look at ways to possibly reduce expenses if we anticipate continuing to see low usage this year. But again, we're not the only district similarly positioned. There's work happening through CASBO at the state level to try to get more support, but we need to look. These numbers are simply not sustainable all year long at this level.
And that's all the good news I have.
Do you want to mention that you put June's, the end of the year financials in there as well? in the packet?
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
started there. Yeah,
Oh, you
you
did,
also
okay,
have,
I'm sorry.
you have
No
closing
problem.
financials for
Yep,
last year.
you have left. More good news.
Well, I mean,
Not
look,
surprising. Didn't
Yeah.
expect
No.
it.
yeah, I mean, June was obviously a very tough month, and I think for the year, I mean, given what happened, this isn't, you know, I'm not troubled by the June report, but I certainly agree with the superintendent that going forward, if this is what's going to, if this is what the lunch programs are going to look like, or the food programs are going to look like, we're going to have some different form of support, because I mean, this just doesn't work.
We hope to have some information for you on that topic at your next meeting.
Well, I mean, as you say, we're not the only district that's having this problem. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got red ink coming out their ears.
We had about 50 directors on the call on Friday, and we have a call every Friday. So we have about 50 different directors from 30 to 50 towns and cities throughout the state. On the call, we have one every Friday. We go over solution-based problem solving situations. So we'll definitely be working on various options and what we can put together that'll give us better results than this month.
Okay. Any other comments with respect to the food service report? And by the way, thank you for getting us these reports. I know you're very busy, but we've been missing them for a while. So this is helpful.
No problem at all, Linda. I just supplied the information.
And I would just add to Erica and her whole team that this is not reflective of the work and the care that they're putting into feeding the children who need access to those foods. So I do want to applaud Erica and her extended team. They're doing fantastic work, making sure that students in Guilford who need this service are receiving this service.
Good. Okay, Jason and Linda, should we talk about the tuition report?
Sure. So I sent out the tuition report earlier today. Keep in mind, you know, this is early numbers, but right now we are $151,000 under budget, which is really good news. We've set aside some money for some outplacements that we don't have final costs for yet, so we have estimated those. But you can see by the counts, we're a little bit under the number of students that we had budgeted for. And so far the expenditures are tracking in the right direction. We're hoping that it's going to hold that way. I don't know if Jason, you have anything else to add to this little bit of good news that we have for a change?
Well, Jason, I mean, you normally can see better than any of the rest of us what the potential pipeline looks like. Are there any surprises coming our way here?
Not that I'm aware of. Linda and I met Mr. Sands last Thursday and went over what I can foresee in the near future. As always, things do arise that are unexpected. Crises happen with students that require short-term placements, et cetera, et cetera. And so we will keep you abreast every month on our tuition expenditures. But as of right now, we're tracking, I believe, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are one under what we budgeted for private outplacements and one over on public. So
No,
we're tracking even.
No, we're 2 under for private and 1 under for public.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Linda's better.
Yeah, I like Linda's
This is
story
better.
better. Yeah. Okay, well, look, I mean, I don't know how much longer our luck will last on this one, but let's take it for right now. That's for sure. Okay. Linda, where do we stand on the health report?
So I have not seen a health report. I will ask again. The one that I had received was incorrect, and I had not seen a corrected version. I saw a mistake in it, and she took it back and it was supposed to revise it, and I have not seen a revision yet. So I hopefully will have it this week, and I will send it out as soon as I get it.
Okay, good.
From what I'm hearing, the claims still were trending fairly low,
Huh.
which was a little bit surprising. I thought they would pick up a little bit. They were up a little, but not anywhere near to what we had had in previous years.
I think, Mr. Sands, that one of the things that we need to just keep an eye on is a lot of the elective procedures that were scheduled in the spring are now starting to be rescheduled as hospitals begin to turn their attention to other items to some degree. So we may anticipate some sort of a increase in claims in the months ahead.
I believe that's correct. Based on anecdotal evidence, I was a customer of the hospital a week ago, and they said that was the first week that they were completely booked since the start of the COVID thing. And from then on, they said they filled 53 operating rooms for 16 or 18 hours a day. No trouble. They've got a big backlog. Okay. The next item is the facilities project. And I see that we have the distinguished chairman of the Standing Fields Committee with us today. And so, Paul, how do you want to talk about, meaning Dr. Freeman, how do you want to handle this field infill recommendation?
So I think the first thing would be to turn it over to Cliff to update us on where we are. I do want to make clear that at this point, we anticipate this bond request coming forward in the normal budget timeframe. So we're not expecting this to be on a referendum for the community in the next 3 weeks. This would be on the April referendum, but we have the luxury of being able to move forward fairly quickly. Cliff, if you just want to give a really high-level overview of the total project, and then we can talk about, we have asked both our athletic director and the Standing Fields Committee to comment on the bill choices that are available to us at this time.
Right. So as mentioned, we do have Paul with the Standing Fields Committee, as well as Luke McCoy from KBA, who's also on the line. So we got recommendations from both the athletic director as well as the Standing Fields. And then I did ask Luke from KBA, since they are the kind of experts, in the fields. They've seen a lot of fields that are getting put in this area and throughout New England, to make a recommendation as well, as far as what they would prioritize as far as the 4 types. From looking at the 2 recommendations that I've seen from the Standing Fields and from Jake, the recommendations are very similar. There's just one change in the top number 1, but again, I don't know if you want to have KBA, Paul, kind of chime in and give their recommendation. I believe everyone received a copy of the 2 other recommendations from both the Standing Fields and the athletic director, I believe.
Yeah, I think we turn it over to Mr. Schmidt, let him talk about where Standing Fields is at this time, and then I think Luke can help us with answering questions.
Thanks, Paul. Standing Fields took up the subject on the regular monthly meeting on September 28th, reviewing all 4 of the different options, the non-coated crumb rubber as one option, the acrylic coated crumb rubber as another option, the acrylic coated sand as a third, and then also the organic or natural Brock fill compound. Looking back at all of the data and research that we had, and unfortunately, we were not able to do the site visit to Rhode Island last week for the Brockville field, although we did reach out to 2 fields in Massachusetts, in Marblehead, as well as Somerville, who do have the Brockville, to see if we could gather some data, but we don't have any feedback. The committee would like to recommend as a first choice the acrylic coated crumb rubber. Our recommendation is based on several different factors. Number one, it does outperform the acrylic coated sand, which is, many of you know, what we did install in the new synthetic turf field along New England Road, and is more in line with the field's performance from an athletic perspective. We recognize that that was somewhat of an issue a number of years ago, but all of the recent information that we have from both EPA and other sources have not shown any connection directly with health risks and the acrylic coated rubber or the non-coated rubber. As a matter of fact, the Indian River field complex in Clinton has had that synthetic or acrylic coated crumb rubber in place for over 10 years and have reported no real issues. We felt that that was our number 1 choice. Our number 2 choice would be the acrylic coated sand, similar to the new field that we have on New England Road right now. So that was a recommendation from the entire committee.
And that very much aligns with Mr. Jarvis. Our athletic director, Mr. Jarvis, did actually put the raw rubber as his top choice based on our experience with it and our lack of concerns with it. However, he does identify the acrylic coated rubber as his second choice and acknowledges that there have been community concerns about the raw rubber fill. So he aligns very closely to with what Standing Fields is recommending. Again, we have some time. We don't need to finalize this decision tonight. I'd still like to work on that site visit if we could to make sure that we're doing our due diligence. I do know that our athletes prefer one of the 2 rubber fills to the sand. I think if you talk to our athletes, if you talk to the students who play on the field, there's a difference in how the field plays if you're on the rubber fill compared to the sand fill.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, what was the issue with, other than not being able to speak with someone in Rhode Island or Massachusetts? What's the negative for the Brockville?
Yeah, Cliff or Paul, can you speak to why the Brockville didn't do better in your evaluation?
Well, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, the Brockville, even though it is a comparable cost to the acrylic coated crumb rubber, it does require more maintenance. It also requires a top dressing of the entire field every 3 to 4 years, something that we do not have to do with either the acrylic coated sand nor with the acrylic coated rubber. It's an entirely different field than our facilities have been used to over the last number of years. And it's a new product with very little history behind it. So it is an organic material and can tend to break down, even though it is warranted by the manufacturer. And we just felt that staying with some of the products that we're used to, number one, and have a history, number two, was in the best interests of the town.
We did consider the acrylic or the covered rubber fill last time, right, with the new field? Is that correct?
Correct, we did.
We considered it, but I think the final decision at that time was to go with the coated sand.
Correct.
And am I correct in understanding that part of the reason to do that was because of community support for that choice over the acrylic rubber?
We had one public evening, and yes, it seems to be that there was public sentiment in avoiding rubber completely, and the acrylic coated rubber was newer at that time. Now it wasn't completely new. Luke, I'm wondering if you can give any comment on now that the acrylic coated rubber has been around longer, is there more of a body of evidence behind it? Have there been any issues with it? Has it been related or connected to any of the concerns that have been tied to the raw rubber fills?
Sure, I can answer a few. Just one, actually 2 points of clarification on the Brock fill that Paul mentioned is that it may require one top dressing, but it does not require top dressing every 2 to 3 years. That's the other organic infills such as green clay and whatnot there. And at the end of this year, there is intended to be close to 100 Brockville fields installed in the U.S. By the end of 2020. So with that, but to the coated crumb rubber fields, as was mentioned before, it was a newer product when you were reviewing for your upper field, your newer field. It's been utilized quite a bit now in New England. I did forward on a list to Cliff and the committee in regards to projects we knew of. Indian River is one of the oldest at 10 years, but it has been used in a number of others with benefits noticed, as we talked about last time, with the ability to have a cooler field in the summer months. Not as cool as an organic, but certainly cooler than a straight crumb rubber. And they have had good luck with the ability for the product to stand up and perform similar in nature to a crumb rubber project infill, which you're used to on your stadium field. Again, it also does not have some of the other drawbacks or challenges that you've found with the acrylic coated sand, which is the abrasion tendency of that infill and just the general feel underfoot. It's a little bit different because it's more of a unforgiving or solid, almost feels like you're walking on chips or something of that sort that the athletes have commented on after playing on it for a couple of years now. But all three options utilize a shock pad like your upper field and the same type of a turf carpeting system. The infill would be the only difference between the three different items, infills that were proposed last time.
Cliff, as a timeline question, this is an update for the board tonight, but we don't need to make a final decision tonight. When would you expect we would want to have a final decision to have this be ready as a bonding question for the April referendum?
So it's not so much the bonding question because that I need to do is sooner than later. Sooner than later, I need to have a really decision on the top two choices that we'd like to go with so that we can put out the bid after the first of the year, probably by February. So the bid would be going out well ahead of the bonding. So we have to at least have that information. And then the bond question would probably lean towards the more expensive of the two options. And then depending on what was chosen after the bids come in, then we would obviously may have a savings if we go with less expensive of the two options. But we'd prefer to at least bid out two options and get prices on two different types of infills. And then that would also bring back more information, final information for the committees to make a final decision on, because if there's obviously a drastic cost change, or if they happen to come in closer than we expect, then maybe that would persuade people's decision one way or the other as well.
So Cliff and Paul, is there a downside or is there a benefit to bidding three options rather than two? What if we simply took raw rubber off the list and bid out the coated rubber, the acrylic sand, and the Brock fill? That would allow us time to visit fields in Rhode Island while the bids hit the street, and it would allow us, in collaboration with Standing Fields, to choose among 3 choices rather than between 2 choices with actual prices connected. With that, is there a downside to that, or would that in fact be beneficial?
My first question would actually go back to Luke, because as long as everything is built the same underneath the infill, so if we're using the same shock pad and same carpet, drainage, everything else below, and that part of the bid spec is all the same, then there's no real downfall because it's a small difference that we're bidding versus if each one has a different
But if the drainage
configuration, then I'm designing for 3 different
then that's
fields.
more complicated. That's a good question.
So Luke, is the design of all the fields the same and it's just the top dressing, the infill that's different?
Yes and no. So the short answer is it's fairly simple in the bid documents to be able to account for all 3 if you'd like to. The difference between the other 2 and the Brockville is that the Brockville, in order to have the 10-year performance and material warranty, you have to use the pad that Brock also manufactures. But that just goes into the warranty language for bidders that they know when bidding that particular system, they have to account for pricing of the Brockville and the Brock pad, whereas the other 2 systems, they can use an or equal pad when they put their numbers together. But as far as design, the thickness of the system, how it's put together, all of that is the same. Just means we have to make sure you have a few extra paragraphs of language in the spec for clarification on that. We wouldn't want you to void the ability for that 10-year warranty if you choose that product because of that in it. But that's it. We can certainly do all 3. As many of you are aware, Connecticut does not have the requirement that we have to pick bids alternates in order when you get them. Other states do, so we do have the ability to have a base bid product and then 2 other systems as alternates, and then it can be selected after the fact.
Luke, would
I don't see any objection to that
a
approach.
complicated package or no?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you think we would lose bidders for looking indecisive and for making a more complicated bid process, or do you not worry about that?
Honestly, I just put one out for, I'm actually working for the contractor and helping him secure the turf and infill product. And he had 4 solid competitive bids utilizing all 3 of these infills on his. And then just 2 days ago, we received bids in for a field up in, or actually 3 fields up in Massachusetts that all had the newest of the infill, which was Brockville, in it. And we received 6 general contractors that bid that one as well. So I don't see any issue with it, especially if we're keeping the carpet, the green stuff, the same in all 3. If we start playing around with that being different, then yes, they may complain, but I don't see, based on this approach, any issue.
So Paul and Cliff, I'm just not seeing a reason to limit ourselves. Let's go ahead and bid on all 3 and keep working on what we prefer. Did either of you have any reason to think that's not a good course of action?
I don't think we have any objection.
Great. So
I'm fine with that. We'll move forward with that direction and put together the bid package with the 3 infills, excluding the crumb rubber, virgin rubberish materials, and get that out to bid, put together, approved by the Standing Building Committee, and out to bid shortly after the first of the year. And then we'll go from there.
I just have one question, Cliff. If we go with the April bond referendum, that may present the problem with trying to achieve a completion date of, say, August 31st. Is there any way that we can, work the language of the bond such that we could award a contract prior to July 1st?
Oh, we can easily award the contract before July 1st. We can award the contract the day after the referendum is approved by the town. It becomes official, I would say. So that's why we will pre-bid. We just can't accept that bid or sign on a bidder or approve that, award that bidder until the referendum has fully passed. So
That's fine.
We'll just have an appropriations clause built into them so that we can't sign it until the bond has been approved by the voters. Yep.
Understood.
if there's a severe time restraint, I have in the past set up to have a Board of Selectmen meeting just after the referendum so that we can get any bids approved and move through the Board of Selectmen office quickly and efficiently, to the extent where we even have the contracts written up ahead of time.
This is Katie Palastrisi. It sounds like this is going to happen, but I'm going to underscore the importance, at least for me and perhaps several other board members who were part of the decision around the original field, or not the original field, the newer field, to one, get as much information as we can on the Brockville, including a visit, and to get to the Board of Education any articles or information that that the standing committee is using to base their rankings on. As Amy Sullivan indicated with her question, it's going to be really important for us as a board to be really clear about why we're making the decision we're making, particularly if in the past, and it's not going to feel like a long time ago for parents who felt strongly, if we're going to make a decision that goes against something they clearly did not want 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm not saying that with information there isn't new things to consider, etc. But I feel pretty strongly that I need to be able to make an informed decision and recognize that others maybe are ahead of us because they've had more time. But to me, that would be very helpful.
Kate, just to clarify, are you interested in joining us for the walkthrough at one of these facilities or multiple facilities? Or are you strictly just looking for our feedback after we perform a walkthrough?
I am happy to attend if that would be helpful. I want to be clear that my particular judgment is this is not my skill set.
Right.
So
More important that it happens.
That's
than that, yes.
exactly right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the offer. I trust the judgment of the people doing the walkthrough. It just would be helpful, right? I don't want to miss the opportunity to look into this option. And if we look into this option and the decision is it is not the best option, I'm fine with that. But as a board member, I need to be able to turn to our constituents and say, this was the thorough look that was done on all these 3 options. This is where we landed, and this is why.
Right. And I think getting the bid on the street, the way we've discussed, gives us the opportunity to do that and do it thoroughly without losing any prep time. I think we're really affording ourselves the best of both worlds by doing it this way.
Thank you.
Katie, I just wanted to add to that. I just recall, the public kind of opinion or perception when we did the other field, and I agree with you that any education we can have on the field options, but also to have a concise way to communicate that to the public, so that they don't feel like this is something we just, decided internally, because I know there was very strong opinions last time, and just kind of reinforcing what you just brought up.
Thank
I
you.
think that's
Yeah.
important. Thank you.
I agree. I know I already said it, but I think it will be important to see those 2 places in Massachusetts. And, if there's other fields in Massachusetts or wherever that are turning to this Brockville, I'm okay with being ahead of the crowd if it ends up that we get good feedback, just because there isn't a lot in Connecticut yet. I'm okay with that.
Luke's, what's the schedule for the completion of the Bristol and Hartford field with the Brockville?
Sure. Hartford is currently under construction. They are anticipating to hopefully have the project completed prior to end of this year, unless we get a really bad December, but their intent is to have it done by middle of December. Bristol, my understanding is they are either started or about to start anytime now, and also anticipating being done prior to end of this year with those 2 fields as well. So And then as we had tried to, I do have lined up the field in Rhode Island and Kingston. I just need to reschedule now. Unfortunately, they took a little while to get back to us, but now that we've got back and forth with them, we can certainly look at as soon as maybe next week, going out to visit that one, which has been in the ground for, I think, just over a year now out there.
That'll be more helpful. We'll be able to talk about their experience with it. That's great. Thanks, Luke. That's all good news.
Yep.
Okay. Cliff, if you've got other facilities you want to report on?
I do, and I just want to thank Paul and Luke for joining us. You're more than welcome to listen to my spiel or move on to happier times at home. So we do have numerous projects that are still underway, plugging along, and some are coming to a close. The Melissa Jones Elementary School HVAC project, all the equipment's installed. We have very little left. We're probably about 98% complete. They're working on the final controls installation and wiring, which will hopefully come to a close the end of this week or next week. They are looking to start up the condensing unit for the air conditioning Friday. So the controls crew are coming out Wednesday, Thursday to get that online so that the manufacturer can come do the startup on that unit. So we're looking forward to putting that project to bed. Moving on to Baldwin's HVAC, we're still plugging along. We know the fan coil units have taken longer than anticipated to install. We have a meeting scheduled for, I believe it's Thursday now, with the contractor to discuss other possible options to expedite getting work done. They've only been running about 2 to 3 people as a crew, and we're trying to hopefully double that so that we can get through the air handlers. I did talk to the owner of the company before. He did state that the fan coil units are the more complex piece. One fan coil is essentially equals 1 air handler, and we're only doing, I believe 4 more air handlers versus the 16 fan coils that have been installed. So the bulk of the work, so we're probably like 68 or 65% complete with the project. The last 40 some odd percent will hopefully move quickly, especially if we can get additional crews out there. So we are having that meeting to give them a push to really get this complete sooner than later, and get that building up and running. We do have temporary cooling heating units. Now that it's kind of the weather is switched, there'll be probably just strictly heating coming in to supply air and heat to, again, the gym and the band room. From there, moving down to Adams, the parking lot, phase 1, the railing has been shipped and is expected to land at the installer's location next week. And as soon as it arrives, he's going to get that installed. So once that railing, it's the guard railing that goes around the perimeter to prevent anybody from really driving out onto the fields or into the swale that we have made for the retention pond. So once that gets installed, then we just have some drainage stone to install around the edges to slow down the runoff, and that project will be complete. So the paving contractor is just waiting for that railing so that then he can install the stone after that. So that project will be complete, hopefully prior to next week, next month when we meet again. The phase 2 part of that project, we received the splice box, which was a special order, just came in recently. So we are now working with Eversource to come up with a schedule. We need somewhere really a minimum of 2 days to take the school down, turn off the power, cut the lines, install the box, resplice all the lines, and reroute them to the new telephone pole, and then put the power back on. So we're looking at potential days to do that, and or a double shift. So maybe for the Thanksgiving break, because I think that's the only real option we have, we may try to turn off power on It would be Tuesday after school, shut the building down. And then Wednesday, they would come in, install the splice box, do all the work. And then that evening, start the power back up so that everybody can go home and have Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. So it's an aggressive schedule. One we have not vetted with the Eversource yet, but we'd like to get it done sooner than later. We do have a hole over there that's waiting for us to backfill. So we'd like to get that done prior to the winter months coming through. The Guilford Lakes and Cox A&E for the HVAC, so the engineering and design work for the HVAC projects at both those schools are still under review. There's was an extensive say presentations at the last standing building committee meeting by both companies that gave proposals. So the standing building committee had them, both firms, go back and rework their numbers based upon some recommendations that they presented during those proposal interview sessions, so that hopefully once we get those back by the end of this week, we may have a special meeting to expedite award of that engineering so that we can get those projects moving forward. Again, the goal would to try to get both those projects done next summer. We do have the Cox funding already, and then the Guilford Lakes, as we know, would be on the docket for April. We also have the Melissa Jones and the Guilford Lakes door and lock projects. Those were both reviewed at the Standing Building Committee as well. And there were some revisions and concerns about those proposals. So I'm trying to get those questions answered. And then once I can get the answers to those questions, we should be able to release those projects to move forward and get the materials ordered so that we can get those doors installed over this winter. The Melissa Jones window project, again, I said we got a lot of projects going on. This is kind of more than normal. We do have the plans. They were reviewed by the Standing Building Committee. There was a couple minor questions that were asked during that. They've been since answered. So we do expect that project to be approved to go to bid at our next Standing Building Committee meeting. So that's moving forward nicely. Also, we have the Melissa Jones elevator project, which we had our kickoff meeting last week. And we took them through the existing systems, and they've been doing a lot of their pre-engineering. So they've started on that project, again, with the goal to hopefully get that done next summer. That project would also have to be added on to the bond request for next year, since it is not a funded project at this time, I don't believe so. So that covers all the existing projects that are either underway or moving forward. Just to touch on our COVID update, all our tents have been installed. Majority of the side panels have been installed. We do have a few more doors that we're working on to be installed, but the tents are or have been inspected by the fire marshal and building official and can be used at the discretion of each of the schools. So that's great news. We had the engineering testing company continuing to go through the various schools to check the HVAC systems, to confirm operation, to adjust any outdoor air that was not at least a minimum of 20%. And at this point, we have completed the high school, Calvin Lee, Guilford Lakes, and Cox School. We've gone probably a quarter of the way through Adams. We hope to get the rest of the way through Adams this week, so we should be good in good shape with that school as well. The other two pieces we have the new misters are in, so we got all 7 misters. Every school now has a mister, which is electronic sprayer, electric static sprayer that we've talked about. So those are in and being used. And then lastly, we have confirmation this week that the partitions for the Guilford High School cafeteria are have been shipped and will be here this week. So we are getting ready for a full opening. The only partitions that we're still waiting for, once these ones for the high school arrive, would be the partitions for Adams. And we do have additional or extra partitions in storage. We have about 350 of them. If needed, we could ship those over to Adams. Otherwise, depending on if Adams goes full or does not go full, depending on the opening on Monday, we'll look at moving things around to accommodate them as needed. So that covers everything on my list and the projects that we're overseeing.
Okay, well, it's certainly your plate is full.
I just have one quick question, Cliff. It's off topic. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just, when we did the playgrounds at Wheat, Cox, and Melissa Jones, did the Board of Ed was just responsible for the site work? Is that correct?
That's correct. So we removed the existing structures and then we prepped any site work for those 3 facilities. So
Okay.
are you in reference to the Guilford Lakes potential project?
Yeah, I was contacted. I'm the rep there, and the PTO president contacted me, so I just wanted to get back with her with the correct information. So all the equipment was done through the PTOs for various ways. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and just keep in mind,
Local PTOs, correct?
Yep. And just keep in mind, Amy, as you're probably aware, that school has a rather large play area. So it has an extremely large blacktop, and then it's the only school that really has 3 areas for the different levels. Most of the other schools have 2 levels. So when we go to do that project, we do expect that to be a lot more costly than the last few playgrounds that we've installed. Just so you know.
It is worth noting, Cliff notes that they have 3 levels, which includes preschool, and the preschool at Lakes is district-wide. Lakes houses the district-wide preschool. So there are youngest children from the entire community attend preschool at Lakes Elementary School, which does make it slightly different than the 3 other projects.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Cliff?
Thank you, Cliff.
Well, keep up the good work, Cliff. You've got a lot on your plate.
Thanks.
I don't know of any communications that have come to the operations committee. But if anybody else has anything, that's fine.
You know, I'll just share here if I can that on Friday I had the opportunity to visit Mr. Dom, who had a band class rehearsal that was occurring in one of the large tents here, and to be able to see the students in a quasi outside setting, spaced out 12 or 15 feet each, and being able to play together was an exciting opportunity. So I do want the communities to know that the tents are affording us some of the opportunities that we have been curtailing in the beginning of the school year. It was nice to see the students in that setting, and it was nice to see how thrilled Mr. Gom was to have the opportunity to engage in that type of learning opportunity. I know that Mr. Gurnham mentioned the side panels. We will do everything we can for as long as we can to keep those tents as open as we can. The side panels that he mentioned can be tied open and will be tied open to make those spaces outdoor spaces for as long as the weather allows. And even when we need to start enclosing them, we're looking to do things like only closing the windward side of a tent, allowing it to be a windbreak, but still keep it as an outdoor space. Students obviously will have to dress appropriately when using those spaces.
Paul, that was along the same lines as some communication I've gotten, was just some clarification on what the tent's going to be used for. You know, beyond, you know, primarily with Guilford High School, because a lot of parents saw it go up and weren't sure, you know, which they assumed the band, but some had asked if lunches, you know, kids at lunchtime would be allowed to be out there. I don't know
All
if
of
there was a
that.
plan to communicate the use of it to parents, or if that's not
Will
necessary.
will be coming locally from the school. So the tents were placed at every school as just one additional resource for each school to be able to draw on locally. So the high school has two and has larger than the other locations. One for sure will be used to extend the lunch space, and the other one will be used primarily for classroom opportunities. At the other buildings at the elementaries, they may be used for things as simple as mask breaks. Right now, teachers are taking frequent mask breaks. And although the state's experiencing a drought, that's been really beneficial for us. As the weather starts to turn more challenging, principals and teachers may need to create local schedules for that tent just to make sure that every class, every cohort of students is getting an opportunity for a mask break in a covered area. But they're there for the principals as resources, and each building will use it to relieve the pressures of masking and cohorting and limited movement in the building to give students other opportunities. Maybe some classes, and may just be some breaks. And to be really clear, Cox, as they already have the covered shed area, did not receive one of the tents. Cox was the only school that had a space, as we've been describing, built in and available to them from the very beginning. And so when we talk about the tents, I want to make it clear that we did not install a tent at Cox, as they already had access to a covered space of that nature. The other schools did not.
Okay. It's 7:07. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Dick Hirsch.
Amy Sullivan, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's
Okay,
unanimous.
see you in 23 minutes.
We'll see you back here on the